Welcome back to Leading Our Own Way. I'm Andrew White, and if you haven't listened to part one with Matty Johns yet, please go back and start there. It is worth every second. In part two, though, here today, we're going to go even deeper. Matty opens up about his journey through anxiety and depression, a heart health scare that genuinely shook him, and the role that sleep and daily routines played in pulling him back from the edge. We also talk about vulnerability, what it actually takes to share your own story when the world tells you to stay quiet, the impact of alcohol, the strength of a good support network, and what Matty is building now for the basketball community and beyond. This is the kind of conversation that reminds you why sharing your story matters, not just for you, but for everyone listening who needs to hear that they are not alone. Let's get into it with Matty and myself. Before we dive in, I want to give a massive shout out to our now new proud sponsor, Eshu Skincare, a brand that truly aligns with Leading Our Own Way. This Australian-born company is dedicated to keeping skincare simple, effective, and straightforward. They've made waves in the US, even landed in Macy's and over 300 stores, and now they're back with a renewed focus on healthy skin and real results. If you want authentic skincare that fits your lifestyle, check them out in the show notes. Thanks to Eshu Skincare for supporting real stories and mental fitness on Leading Our Own Way. And if you're interested in sponsoring like Eshu Skincare, drop us a message. We'd love to connect.
There's only like a 1% chance of it coming back, and if it doesn't show up in the first 6 months, then I don't know how many zeros there are in it. I can't remember, but there's a very unlikely chance that it does come back.
Yeah, wow. Well, thanks for the appendix anyway.
Exactly.
Oh,
Always
my
positive
Lord.
out of a negative situation.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree. And it's interesting you brought up that the anxiety. I was rushed into hospital because they thought I was having a heart attack because I used to get these pains here along my sternum, and it turned out to be the gallbladder speaking to me. The gallbladder was that badly infected, it was sending up basically crap up here, and I thought it was anxiety attacks from the shit that I'd been through, right? The workplace trauma and stuff like that. And so I put it down to anxiety. Now I still don't know if it ever was. I never felt anxious, even though I did suffer for anxiety I did suffer with anxiety for years, but I thought that was the result of it, right, coming up. And it turned out to be my gallbladder was just absolutely destroyed, but it was that destroyed sepsis had set in, and that's what was nearly the death experience, right?
Exactly.
So, but I was panicking, and they didn't even, your doctors found the other issue with the heart. They never found it, the issue with the gallbladder, until I got rushed in 3 days later when I was nearly passing away. I'm like, why didn't you do those checks 3 days earlier?
Exactly.
We've gone off track there slightly, but and I'm glad we did, because I didn't know anything about that, and that's fascinating. Take us to that night then. We've got an understanding of where your head was at that night. Lack of sleep, super important. You talked to us a little bit about your bridge and your mindset leading up to that moment.
Yeah, so I remember there was a turn that I had to make, and then there's kind of a long, pretty straight road and a massive river with a fairly big bridge over it, and I kind of was looking at it, and I still kind of can't remember what was in my head before that. I had music on, I know that much, but I was just set on driving off, and it was probably for a good 10 to 15 seconds coming up to it, and then luckily I had my phone in my phone holder right near the steering wheel, and my mum texted me very out of the blue. She knew I was struggling with sleep at this point, so instead of waiting for the morning to message me just in case it woke me up, she would send me a message just when she thought of it. And I still can't remember what that message was. It was completely random, but that was enough for me to pull off and turn the car off, and I completely broke down for a good 20 minutes and saved my life, because I don't think I'd be here if I didn't get that message or see it on my phone holder.
When you share that story with your family, what does your mum feel and say to you in that moment?
It's been a while since we've talked about it. I didn't tell her that happened for a long time.
Why not?
Uh, it's a good question. I talked to her about the drive and the thoughts and what I had planned to do, but I don't think it was until I came home, I think about 6 months later, that I sat down and talked to her and told her that she saved my life. And I remember hugging her for a long time and she was crying and kind of just had a moment. I don't think a lot was said, just me saying thank you to her. But we've always been very close, and those scenarios have just strengthened that relationship. And now, at this day, I'm very open with her about my mental health, about what's going on, how I'm feeling. I know I don't need to hide anything with her.
Yeah, that's nice. I mean, it's devastating to hear your baby boy, right? Say
Mm.
those words. Did you say she was? I mean, I know you had the discussion 6 months later when you saw her and you were back home, but did you tell her? Did you tell her anything while she was still there?
No, so I think took me about 24 hours to tell anyone what had happened. I told mum, I told Brad, my assistant coach, and he was the one to push me to the school counsellor. But um, yeah, once I pulled off to the side of the road, just kind of froze, cried for 20 minutes, and then went back and slept on the recliner like I did most nights. That was kind of my safe space. But then the next day, talked to mum and told her. Still a very blurred conversation. It was a hard one to admit. Um, I had talked to her about missing home and kind of the surface level problems of life, I guess, and struggles, but I went into a bit more detail, talked to my assistant coach, and then got into the school counselor. And that's when I had about, I think it was an hour and a half session. At that point, that was the first time I'd completely opened up to anyone, to
Mm.
myself, I think. I think I lied to myself a lot about how I was feeling, what I was thinking, and that destroyed me for a good couple of days. And going into that session, I didn't think getting diagnosed with depression or anxiety would change my mindset, because at the time I thought, all right, I have what I have, I feel the way I feel, a label's not going to do much to it. But it wasn't until a few days later where I had my follow up appointment and I got diagnosed with severe to mild anxiety and depression. And in the appointment, I was like, okay, so what do we do now? Kind of book in a few more appointments. But for the next 48 hours, I felt like I got hit by a truck, physically and emotionally. It was a struggle to get through, but got through the counsellor and my support network. I got through that point, but I didn't realize how much that label and the diagnosis itself would affect me.
How did it affect you then?
I think it, one, put a label in my head to say something is wrong with me.
Hmm.
Um, I had the counsellor suggest antidepressants and took them for a good 9 months, and they were really good. But even with the medication, the thought of me having to take a tablet every day to be okay got to a point where I needed to get off the medication. But similar thing with the diagnosis, I think at first I saw the label as a problem, not a solution.
Mm.
Um, and once I shifted that mindset of, all right, perfect. Now I know I've got severe depression and anxiety. Now we can put in steps to work through this.
Yeah. So what steps did you decide? Did you put the steps in before you decided to come off the medication, or did the steps come after coming off the medication? Because some people obviously look at medication as one of those steps, right? Did
Yes.
you start your own journey before the end of medication or after?
Yeah, so medication was kind of the first step. Well,
Hmm.
second step, I think. I think I booked in probably 4 or 5 sessions with the therapist after that, but I knew at that point that medication was going to help me. I didn't have any negative thoughts towards the medication at first, outside of kind of that feeling of needing to take it, and but I got past that pretty quick, and it was a great tool for me. It helped mellow my emotions out. Like my lows definitely weren't as low, and it did what I needed to at the time.
Yeah.
With the other steps of creating that support network with my mom, dad, whole family, coaching staff, even my best mate Caden, living next to him in the dorms, instead of just kind of being in my own room trying to deal with him, talking to him, just
Mm.
having a conversation, not trying to cover up anything just because I don't want to be seen a different way from them. And I think that's what most people go through, the stigma behind it, and not wanting other people to see you differently. But I think some people do see you differently in a positive way. I think being able to talk about mental health and how everyone's feeling is such a positive and such kind of a superhero, like superpower in a sense, because having that courage to be vulnerable helped me immensely. I know through talking about it has helped others, and I guess that's what helped my journey to get started along with the medication.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I mean, that's why the podcast exists, right? That's why we're
Exactly.
here today.
Yes.
Was there any side effects to the medication?
Not overly. It helped with my sleep at the start.
Which was a big problem for you, wasn't it?
Exactly. So once I noticed that, obviously it wasn't like I was going not sleeping to having 10 hours of sleep. I was still struggling, but it was managing the sleep, not just completely not sleeping. I think the only side effect I can remember is kind of towards that 9 months of taking, where I started to realize that yes, my lows weren't as low, but I wasn't feeling as happy as I felt like I should be in good moments. And that's when talking through my therapist that I thought it would be time to get off it, purely for the fact that it served its purpose when I needed it to. It helped me get out of that rock bottom. But with my progress through my journey, I was able to have the tools to work through things and not having to rely on that medication to keep my lows a bit higher than what they probably are.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you came off the medication, then did that strategy work for you? You didn't go back down?
Yeah, I think I went down a little bit, but I was prepared. I
Yeah.
was equipped with my resources. I had that mental uh, mental strength, I guess, of knowing, okay, yes, I might feel my lows a bit lower, but on the other hand, I'm gonna feel a lot better when I'm happy,
Mm.
and that's the trade-off to it.
Yeah. Did you ever venture down roads like, breath work, cold plunges? I mean, those two things were massive for me, and they really helped me manage my emotions and my mental state. Did you ever practice anything like that?
A little bit. Through seeing a sports psych now, I have started doing some breath work. I think as a high performance athlete, cold plunges is a great recovery source. Obviously, there's the mental side of it that is great as well, but I think athletes look at the cold plunge more of a recovery. I love ice baths. I think they definitely help me get up the next morning a lot easier. But
Oh, the best. Clarity for the whole day.
exactly.
We
I
should do a cold
think
plunge. We should go and do a cold plunge.
100%. Definitely.
The sauna place down the road. We should totally
Yeah,
do that.
100%. We will. But yeah, a little bit. Like, it wasn't a main focus. It wasn't a turning point for me. But I guess trying all those small things like ice bath, breath work, even small things in my therapy sessions are all the little steps or little bricks to get to where I am now. There wasn't
Yeah.
one thing that happened one day that I was like, all right, sweet, don't have to worry about anything anymore. I know my journey is still a journey and it's not finished by a long point, and I don't think it ever will be. I don't think you beat mental health. You get to understand it, learn to live with it. I know it's a part of me. Like, I'm gonna have anxiety, I'm gonna have some bad days, but that doesn't mean that that's who I am. That's just life. Unfortunately, everyone has bad days in life.
Well, anxiety is a byproduct of fear. You know, I always refer back to the jungle where we used to live, right? You know, if you go to YouTube and watch a deer, I've shared this example many times, but if you go and watch YouTube and go and watch a deer being attacked by the lions or the tiger, fear sets in, and there's two outcomes to that attack: either death or survival. Once the attack's over, and let's say the deer survives, the mother or the father is back to look after its young. Fear disappears, but fear will set in if it comes back, and they're always on alert, but they don't have time to be anxious. Whereas in this modern world, we've created all these comfortable things. You know, like, for example, your basketball, let's say you're anxious about going and playing basketball. You'll go into basketball, but I mean, my example there probably is better. When I was being bullied at the workplace, I was going into the jungle and I was waiting for the tiger because I knew the tiger was going to be there. So anxiety was a byproduct of my fear. Anxiety was telling me it's not right, but I'm going in anyway. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Like, I really struggled with it. I used to look, I'll be open now. I actually used to look at people who are anxious as weak. But I learned through my own journey that is far from the case. So not the case. I was strong and confident, yet I was being pulled down, and I was no longer scared anymore. I was anxious because I didn't know when the tiger was there. I was always scared, but I didn't know when the tiger was going to attack me. You know, I don't know if I've explained that well, but yeah, it's a tough one, anxiety, isn't it? And you're right. Once it's a part of us, I've worked on myself so much, but I still have those anxious moments. Just taking a very quick break to thank our sponsor, SU Skincare. If you haven't heard of them, SU Skincare started right here in Australia, using Australian ingredients to make skincare straightforward and accessible, especially for men who want results without the fuss. Their journey took them all the way to the US, where they were featured in Macy's and over 300 stores. Now they're back with a fresh approach, focusing on healthy skin and authenticity for everyone. I'm proud to have SU Skincare as a sponsor on Leading Our Own Way. See the show notes for their website and to see how you can keep your skin healthy and confident. And if you're interested in sponsoring like SU Skincare, drop us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Now, right back to the episode. Anxiety is, I still struggle with anxiety at times. I think I've labelled it and self-reflected. I've noticed my anxiety comes out when it's fear of judgment and fear of the unknown.
Yes.
But once I've seen that place or know what it's all about and I go back again, that's disappeared completely. And what I try to do to combat that is keep going to the places of the unknown, because I can chip away at that uncomfortability. Whereas if I avoid it, because the brain wants to go to the safe space all the time. It always wants to go to familiarity. And I challenge my brain to be uncomfortable. And when I challenge it, and that's what the cold plunge is for, right? But again, I know where I'm going with that, so it's different. But I'll challenge myself in going to new places, as in new place of work, where the fear of judgment comes in because they don't know. And I work on myself being me and not faking it to somebody to impress them. I'll just be me. And it's weird how I just chip away at it. And I've noticed the more I go to new places and new people, I've become more comfortable with me.
100%. Couldn't agree more.
Before we get to the end of your journey of South Dakota and we, the next stage of your basketball career, you've spent a couple of years, but in America, you mentioned earlier about I think it's really important to go back to the sleep. And you mentioned sleep recline. I think people need to hear that. You're a big dude and you're not in a bed. You're not sleeping in a bed anymore, right?
No.
I think we need to paint that picture. That's where your mental health went. You're in a sleep recliner. Why? You said it was your safe space. They're the words you used before. That's your safe space. Why is that your safe space in a recliner, and why are you continuing to sleep there?
Well, I think I was just having such bad anxiety when I would lay down in my bed that I got to a point where I would go out and watch TV on the recliner and then get really tired, then go into bed. Got to a point that wasn't working. So I actually ended up sleeping on a recliner watching The Office. It's why I've watched it probably 12 times, but watching The Office or some other TV show until I just fell asleep, and that could be 2 a.m. Sometimes it was 5:30 a.m. Like, it varied a lot, but slept on a recliner for just about 2 years.
Wow. You said a minute ago about anxiety in a bed. Why would you become anxious in bed?
I think the biggest reason was it was dark. I was alone. At the point of trying to relax and go to sleep, because I had kept myself busy throughout the whole day, that was when my mind turned on and started going into overdrive.
Yeah. Should have just got a laptop and laid in bed with the laptop, maybe. That might have worked.
Yeah, I definitely think I've tried that, but I think just being in the recliner, it was a good recliner, I will say that much, thanks to Caden, but
I can see you lying there on the recliner.
yeah, half my legs falling off, but I think it was also probably being in the living room, being closer to my roommates, not being in a closed bedroom, having kind of more of an open space, and having the TV on, sometimes even a light on. I do remember we had some small kind of LED lights around the room, so not being alone and not being in that enclosed environment.
Yeah. There's a root to that. I'd love to know why you think that became a problem. Was it because you're part of a big family and you always had people all around you?
Yeah, probably. I think that paints the picture very clearly.
Have you ever looked at that at all?
Not deeply, to be honest. I definitely know that growing up, Dad worked in Melbourne for a bit, but outside of that, family was always very important, and Mum made sure of that. I'd go watch my brother and sister play sport. They do the same. We were always hanging out with cousins and grandparents and auntie and uncles. And I think when you fly a 30-hour trip to America, being by yourself in a room that, yes, your teammates do end up becoming family and very close, but it's different. Like,
it's not the same, is it?
Yeah. It's not.
Yeah. No, I get it, and I think that's probably where it stems from, right? Thinking about it, that's what's coming to me when I think about your journey. You said 2 years. It came to a point. I remember you saying in the pre-chat, you realised after a while this wasn't normal.
Yeah. I remember, unfortunately, we had to do COVID testing at my second school at Concordia. Through the thick of COVID, we were there 3 mornings at 7 a.m. And I remember multiple mornings I would go to get tested without having slept before. And that was kind of at the back end of that 2 years of sleeping on a couch of the recliner. And I got to a point that realistically I was going to go back to where I was driving up to the bridge, not sleeping for 2 hours if something didn't change. I think I gently forced myself to switch. I think by communicating to my mum, to Caden, my roommate, that I shouldn't be doing this helped. Where he definitely knew it. He walked out some mornings and I was there watching something and he was like, "Oh, you've been out here all night?" And I'd say, "Yeah," and kind of brush past it. So I know he knew that I was out there most nights, if not every night. And but having that acknowledgement of that something was wrong helps me move back into a bed and a bedroom.
Yeah. Yeah. So is sleep, because of that journey, is that part of your journey, is sleep something you really focus on now?
Yeah, definitely. To some degree, even probably a little bit too much. If I have a bad night's sleep, the first thing that happens in the morning is, I hope that I can sleep tonight. Or when I go to bed the next night, I'm like, all right, well, I need to make sure that I sleep well because if I don't, that means I'm back 4 years ago in that dark
Yeah.
space. But that isn't the case. But similar to what I said before, that it's a constant journey. I know I'm going to have a lot of nights sleepless or struggle with sleep, but that doesn't mean I'm the same person or in that same mindset 4 years ago.
Yeah. I know what you mean. When I started to get the Whoop and my watch, I used to think about my brain because I'd read the book Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker and just there, and I started to like really analyze by looking at my watch, right, of how much deep
Yeah.
sleep I'd get and how much REM. And I was going to pay for the subscription on Whoop, that's the strap.
Yeah.
And oh my God, I started to way overthink it. I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm actually going to send it back. Yeah, I used my mum 3 trial and I was obsessed and I was falling into their hands. I should have got it right. But I was like, no, this is not working for me. I'm overthinking it, which is actually impacting my sleep on the opposite end of it. And, on the flip side of that, what I do realize is the importance of sleep. We've manipulated so much in this society over the last few thousand years. Sleep is so important, though. And again, I don't want to get in our own heads about it, but I do want to teach the world at the same time.
Yes.
The 3 things we want to do innately as humans is defend ourselves. Because if you think about it, sleep doesn't make sense. And I think I shared with you last time, innately we want to defend ourselves, eat, and reproduce. And those are the 3 things we cannot do when we are sleeping. Yet the brain hasn't evolutionized sleep out of its repertoire.
Yeah.
It's just incredible what our brain needs to go through to help us. It's just fascinating, isn't it? All right, I don't think you shared the record, but I'm going to read your record out from that freshman year, just to paint a picture of where it went kind of off for you in that second year. The first year you come out of a possible 27 games and started 19 out of the 27, and that was a record for a freshman at the time. Second year you go through this journey, but basketball wasn't quite the same for you there, was it?
No. Having struggled with, I guess, the heart checkups at the start and struggling to find my way back into the team and kind of the lineup. I had some good games throughout the year, but I also had some games that weren't amazing or I didn't play. And unfortunately, I ended up not playing 7 out of the last 9 games of the season. So kind of got to a point that I was like, all right, well, maybe it's time to go home for a number of reasons, but mainly because of basketball. It wasn't working out. And I always knew in the back of my head, I've got the choice to come home and play professionally, or at least try and get into that space. So that was at the start of 2020, and I'd planned, talked to the Geelong Supercats coach, and almost signed a contract to come home and play. And unfortunately, that's when COVID-19 happened, and everything got shut down, and we got flown out of college. Our school was like, yep, go home, like get home before the borders shut. So I was lucky enough to get home. Had to quarantine at home for a week, I think it was, at the time. That was easy when we have 3 acres and a lot of space, but I ended up not knowing what to do with NBL 1 cancelled, questions about NBL going ahead. So I ended up turning to one of my old AIS coaches and just asked, hey, what do you think's going to happen, or what do you think I should do? And he was like, well, go back to school, because there's no way the college basketball system's going to not play. They'll find a way and they'll play. So I ended up calling Caden, my best mate from South Dakota, and he had ended up transferring to Concordia St. Paul in Minnesota. And I was floated the joke that, oh yeah, my season's cancelled, I might transfer as well. And he's like, well, we still have one more spot. And I was like, oh, really? And he was like, oh, I'll talk to the coach. And within 24 hours, I get a call from the head coach saying, we want to offer you a scholarship. So that's how I got to the second school.
That's incredible. So did he look at some tape, clearly?
Yeah, so obviously he'd talked to Caden, but you had to be in the transfer portal. I don't know with all the different rule changes now how it is, but I mentioned that I hadn't done any of that transferring stuff, and he's like, all right, well, I'm going to give you a call in 12 hours, and that needs to be done so that they could actually talk to me. And I'm sure that they looked at film. I didn't send anything to them, I don't think, but yeah, they were offered me a scholarship.
Nice. So you get back over to the States.
Yep.
Do we go through the same thing we went through before? How was life for you in this second chapter?
Yeah, it was very similar. So I was at South Dakota for 2 years. I was at Concordia for a year and a half, almost 2 years. And first year was really good. Went in as one of the older guys in the team, more experienced. Being from a Division 1 going to a Division 2, you kind of looked as one of the leaders and had a good first year. Obviously had some ups and downs, but found a good spot, was living off campus with Caden. It was great. And then going into my fourth year, I was ready to kind of have that big senior year moment and do well. And first game we played University of Minnesota, and for those that don't know, it's a very good Division 1 school, and as a Division 2 you kind of generally don't come anywhere close to those bigger schools, but we ended up losing by 11 points. And I remember I played really well, played over 30 minutes for the game, and was feeling really excited and happy for the season to come. And then unfortunately from that game, each game kind of got less minutes, and until last 2 games before Christmas break, I was lucky enough that Mum and Dad came over to visit. But that second last game, I think I played 2 minutes, and the last game I didn't play at all. And at that point, I was sick of everything. I wasn't enjoying school, wasn't enjoying basketball, and knew that I could go home and get into preseason for any NBL 1 team. So through a conversation with Mum, that I walked up to her and said I was done, and she was very understanding and supported me through the whole decision, and so did Dad. He was there also. But so I started to reach out to coaches back home and came with the decision that I was going to leave Concordia and sign with Geelong for the NBL 1 season. And with a positive COVID test, it took me a week longer to get back home, but outside of that, it was back home and straight into preseason for Geelong.
So you left before the season finished at college?
Yes, so there's a 2-week Christmas break at most Division 2 schools, and I had a conversation with the coach and just kind of asked why I wasn't playing, and I felt like he couldn't really give me a good enough reason, I guess. Obviously, he mentioned about some of the school markings and whatnot, but I knew I was always going to stay eligible, but there wasn't a real...
School markings in the sense of grade, you mean?
Yes.
So he wasn't playing you because of that?
Yeah, so he looking back now, I can't overly remember the full conversation, but he said that something along those lines. But I asked why didn't he have that conversation with me beforehand, and
And work with
again,
you. Get a mentor.
yes,
Something. Why
yeah,
take the minutes away from you? That's just going to make life worse. Where's the logic in that?
yeah. So there was no real conversation about why until I asked, and then by that point, I had made my decision that I was going to go home and start playing professionally.
I hate that though. Like, we're supposed to big people up, and if I want the best out of my player, I'm going to go to the dorm or work extra hours and build one of my players up. Whether he comes off the bench or starts, I don't care. I'm
Mm.
going to do what I can to get the best out of him so he can come and play basketball.
Yeah.
Anyway, oh, okay. So I think before we come back home, though, I think you did something. I really want you to share your journey about somebody that had died by suicide, and you did some work over there and something similar to this, right? A bit of a conversation. I think this is where maybe the podcast journey started for you. I mean, I know you've done a few, haven't you?
Yeah.
But you did a bit of an article and you got really involved. And I think that's really what opened up your eyes a little bit to being vulnerable and being open about your journey and how important it is to help other people. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to, one of the other basketball boys said that the school had kind of a mental health Instagram page and kind of a community. Unfortunately, one of the soccer players committed suicides a few years before I got there, but they had built up kind of an interview of different athletes from different sports and kind of diving into that mental health awareness. And I did my first piece with them, and the response was unbelievable. I went in to that interview and kind of conversation thinking, oh yeah, this will be cool. Like, definitely open, like I talk about it, so why not put it on the internet? But the response I got was incredible. I had close mates reaching out to me saying that they never knew and how strong I was from speaking up. I had people that I've never talked to before reaching out, and it showed me how much people care and how much people are there for you when you let them be.
Yeah. Love that. Love it. I think it is powerful, isn't it? And I see the power in this every week, and that's the beauty of this. Yeah, it's just what's brought you to me today, right? Outside of
Yes.
us being friends and being part of the community, I think it's yeah, it's just beautiful. I love it. Okay, so I think what I'd love to talk about now is you changed a particular habit before coming back to Australia. And it's something that we didn't touch on the pre-chat, but you did message me and I thought is really important too. You culture of your age, when I was young, I did the same thing, right? You're in America, you might go to bars, you're in a lonely place and there's not much to do, you go to the bars. I've had friends go to Dakota too and tell me it's lonely, so all they do is drink. What were you
Yes.
like before you made a decision to stop drinking?
Yeah, so I was fairly heavy drinker. I think since turning 18 in Australia, that culture behind Aussies and drinking is, especially in the sports space, that after a good win, you drink with your team. And I definitely experienced and enjoyed myself through that scene through the first couple of years of being at college. But my last year at college, it got to a point that my emotions were um, very different when I started to drink. I was very low. I started to have a bit of anxiety that I didn't trust myself. Um, I never got in a car when I was drunk or had been drinking, but I had those thoughts. And after being in a car and coming so close to committing suicide, it was a massive trigger to me. So, start of my last year, I slowed down. I would only drink at the apartment when my teammates were over and it was a safe and confined space. I didn't go out much, and it got to a point where I really didn't like that feeling of when I started to feel a bit drunk and my thoughts would start to go to, maybe go for a drive, or if I didn't feel well, going for a drive and listening to music was a normal thing, and I felt safe doing that when I was sober. And that's the reason why I stepped away from that and thought, all right, well, I feel in control when I'm sober. I never abused alcohol, but I just didn't feel safe. And got to a point where I came home from America, obviously in a negative way, but I haven't touched alcohol since, and it's been just over 4.5 years since.
Love it. And you have really enjoyed that journey of being clear. Not that you were, you suffered with alcoholism or anything.
Yes, of course.
But you've just enjoyed that clarity in your own head. Do you ever feel the need to go out with friends? I'm guessing what you said about sport, you don't go out for a good drink after the game. Do the other boys do as well or not?
Sometimes a few of the boys in the Kilo team does, and my 3-on-3 team, those boys love to have a beer, but no, I don't feel the need or the want to. I've gone out with the team every now and again and just socialise, but I don't need to go and have a drink. I don't think that ever has to go hand in hand, especially for me. But I'm not saying I'd never drink again, but the person I am today, I don't really see that want to either.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love it. And I think it's a great mindset to have, isn't it? I used to drink a lot. Not that I was an alcoholic. I just look forward to a good drink on a Friday or a Saturday night with my friends. Same with basketball. And if we'd been to Newcastle, and not Newcastle here, but Newcastle in the UK, it's a 3.5-hour drive. We'd get on
exactly
in the bus on the way home. And
very normal.
But yeah, I mean, I'm older now. Maybe it's maturity. I don't find the need to have a drink anymore.
No,
I probably touched alcohol twice a year. That's it.
Exactly.
So Matty, you've painted a beautiful journey of your life and the ups and downs, sleep, suicide. You've been through it all, of course, and I think you painted a beautiful picture of where your mind's at now. Tell us a little bit before we come to a close. Before I ask you my final questions, do you think there's anything that we've missed of your journey that is worth sharing?
Well, that's a good question. I think we've covered a lot. I think each part of my journey and story is a bit different. I know I probably can tell my story to 10 different people and get a different version each time, but I think through all of it is, one, I made it through it, and you can too. I don't think that's a question, and through everything that I've learned about doing that social media piece with my school, this podcast, and the other things that I've done, is speaking up is an amazing tool that I can do. And I've always said if it helps one person, then it's done its job. And I'm very grateful to have been told that it's my story has helped others, and that's all I can ask for.
Absolutely. That's why it exists. This is why the platform exists. I completely agree. Okay, so future plans. Just because we're here on the podcast, like you just mentioned, doesn't mean said it a few times. We were always going to battle. When you climb one mountain, you get to that top, you're going to see a bigger mountain in the distance. Of course, having those tools are in place, ready for those combats, are important. That in mind, what are your future plans for your life, physically, mentally, emotionally, professionally? Where do you see life going for Matty Johns?
Yeah, I think obviously basketball is still a huge factor for me. Hopefully within the next month or so we make finals for NBL 1 for Kilo, but moving forward, I'm still trying to crack back into the NBL, hopefully get back on a roster and hopefully play for the next 10, 15 years if I can squeeze out of it, if I can play as long as LeBron. But obviously, as we said, 3-on-3 space is incredibly exciting. Australia's still very new to it, but looking 2 years ahead to LA, playing in the Olympics for Australia would be unbelievable. And then one step further, Brisbane 2032. having lived in Brisbane for 3.5 years, I think that would be a very special moment, and
Yeah.
very proud that my whole family could come and watch.
Love that. Love it. Well, you currently, I didn't mention it, I've mentioned it in the intros, but you're currently in the middle of a basketball month here on Leading Our Own Way. Last week we had a good guy, Steve Moracy, over from the other side of the bay, up in
Yes.
Bayside Way. Then it's you, and next week we've got Leonard Copeland on. So if Leonard's listening, maybe we can get some names out to the NBL teams to get Matty Johns involved.
Yeah, definitely.
And then the week after, number one pro dunker in the world, Jordan Kilgannon.
Unreal.
I'd love to see you two next to each other dunking, actually.
Yeah, I think he's got me by a fair way. I might be tall.
He's only
but
6'1".
Yep, he's. I've seen some of his videos, and that guy can jump.
That guy can jump. So anyone who's listening to Matty John's journey, please come back for Leonard's and actually my apart from Jordan's, but later on in the year, a mutual friend of ours, Jeremy Diamond's coming on the show.
Yeah, awesome, unreal.
Yeah.
Jez is an amazing human, and I was lucky enough to play against him the back end of his Wildcats days, but in my early Tri-Boys days. But yeah, unbelievable human.
Great dude, and he wants me to go and walk some mountains with him during the middle of the night. I'm only going to do it if Matty Johns joins me.
Oh, I don't know about that, but I'll do it in the middle of the day. But
come on, man, you got to do it. You got to do it. You're under pressure on air now.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I would come. Tell me when,
all right, Jeremy,
where, and I'll be there.
I've pulled someone in, Jeremy. I'm scared of doing it on my own with you.
Exactly.
Love it. So, big, powerful, you've given it throughout the episode, but before we come to the end, and I've got a few more questions just before I close down, based on the things that we've discussed today, just a powerful piece of advice for the young, for anyone in the game of basketball, anyone about life, what would you leave us on?
I think basketball and life go hand in hand with advice and experiences, but I think finding your voice and opening up to people is always a great thing to do. It's nothing to be ashamed of. I think our biggest strengths come from our weakest points. I think that's very obvious in my story and struggles, I guess. But being able to talk up to loved ones, friends, professionals, it can go a long way in your journey. And as we said before, it is a journey. Unfortunately, you can't beat something like mental health, but you can give it a good few rounds and learn to live with it.
Yeah, I like that. I think on the flip side to that is it's so important to open up, like you say, but my advice to everybody else is please listen. Don't roll the eyes.
Yep.
Don't have your body language shutting off, because we all know when somebody's really not listening. And I felt like I opened up. I'm a very emotional, open book kind of dude. But on my flip side, I did see people's eyes rolling, or they weren't really present. They weren't taking it seriously. So my advice is, yes, still open up, because that actually caused me to close down, right? So people are always saying open up, and I agree with you 100%. But please, guys, if anyone's listening and opening up, please listen to them. Be present with them and just hear them as well. Don't have to always give advice. You don't always have to do something for them, but just hear them, because it helps massively, doesn't it?
100%.
I'm going to ask you a question that's quite difficult here, Matty.
Yep.
Take your time. But if there was what's one question you wish people would ask you, but they never do?
It's definitely not how tall you are, but I think I get that on the daily. It is one hell of a question.
That's why I ask it.
I think maybe it may be very generic, but sometimes how are you really going is a better way just to say, oh, how are you going? Or are you okay? Because it kind of is a bit more straightforward. And I know when my loved ones and friends ask me that pretty straight up, there's no way to hide behind your answer.
Agree. I mean, it's funny you bring that up. That's the reason why I asked the question of where your mental health lies on a scale, because there's no avoiding it.
Exactly.
You have to give a defense, and you can only ask that to people you're comfortable with, of course.
Yes.
But I think it's a defining question where they can't get out. Like if you say, "Hey, how are you?" You can just say, "Yeah, I'm good," when really you're not.
Yeah.
Whereas you do with the scale, and that's why I've started to incorporate into the podcast, because people actually have to answer with a number, and it allows them to be vulnerable without having to go into detail, and you can leave that for a later date or a few minutes later or whatever it may be.
100%.
Yeah, great answer, man. Great answer. It's a tough question. People do struggle with it, and that's why I do it. And I don't want to trip people up, but I really want people to think about deep down of what they just hope people would ask, but they just never seem to do it. It's quite frustrating.
Yeah.
Final question for you, Matty. It's very crystal clear what your purpose is, but I always ask it because I like the guest to put it into one simple line. So, Matty, what is your purpose?
I think learning through my journey is to help others, and like you, try and change the world as itself. I think through everyone's advice, everyone's story, as a collective, we can help the younger generations remove stigma about mental health. Obviously, a lot of people see me as a guy that plays basketball, and I am, but I don't see that as who I am, as a part of me, yes, but I think down the line's probably why I work in a school now, to help that next generation through learning English and math. But I think helping others is a big purpose of mine.
Love it, mate. I love it. That's why we're here on a poddy again. I love it.
Yes.
Matty Johns, thank you for joining me on Leading Our Own Way. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope you've got something out of it yourself. I hope it's been therapeutic for you as well. That's really, really important to me. But yeah, thanks for giving up your time. Sleep is important. It's 11:15 at night, so I should let you get to sleep.
No, I appreciate it, mate. Thanks for having me on. It's been a great couple of hours having a chat with you.
Love it. Absolutely love it. For everybody who's coming from the basketball world, guys, it's a month of basketball. These great, amazing people are coming on the show, and it's extra special to me because of the basketball world. Steve Moracy last week. Please go back and listen to Steve's. Next week, Leonard Copeland, legend of the game that played with Sir Charles in Philly, played with the Clippers and been a Cayman Australian legend with the Melbourne Tigers. So please listen to his mental health journey as well. It's absolutely fascinating. And then the week after, the number one pro dunker, Mr. John Kilgannon. We've got an exciting month of basketball players here on Leading Our Own Way. Super excited. Just so people know, though, it's not necessarily a basketball podcast.
Just know a lot of people that play.
Yeah, and they've kindly given their time to come on. But Matty, once again, thank you for joining me. Love you, brother, and I will see you no doubt in the next couple of weeks, and I'll maybe come to the Eltham game at the weekend.
Definitely, please do.
Will do. Yeah, awesome. I don't think there's anything on. I think it's possible.
Awesome.
To everybody else, thank you for joining me and Matty this week. Like I always say, come back next week for another amazing journey, another amazing guest. Keep leading your own way. Have a great weekend. But until then, yeah, we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye for now. And that is a wrap with my good friend Matty Johns. What a conversation. It's extraordinary. It's just a beautiful conversation. Matty gives everything. Puts it all on a plate for you all. What a privilege to have him on Leading Our Own Way. Here's the truth I want you to carry with you today, though. Vulnerability is not weakness. Sharing your story is not weakness. It is the most courageous thing a person can do. Matty showed us that the hardest battles, the ones we fight in silence, are often the ones that shape us the most profoundly. If you loved the episode, if you feel like it moved you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a review. It genuinely helps more people find the show. And remember, no matter where you are in your journey right now, you are not alone. Please give that follow on the platform that you're listening to. But until next time, keep leading your own way. Have a great week, and we'll see you then on Monday for Leonard Copeland. Thanks for listening and watching Leading Our Own Way. So we can stay together forever and share more incredible journeys, please subscribe to the channel. That way you won't miss next week's episode and what that amazing guest has to offer to the world. Please support Leading Our Own Way, and we'll get you on next week's episode.